Edelweiss and CNBC TV 18 present Change India, what India needs.
Welcome back to Change India. And infrastructure, as we've identified and has been identified ad nauseum, is one of the biggest challenges that face India. The lack of infrastructure and how do we build up infrastructure is the crucial question. So joining us also now is Niranjan Hiranandani, co-founder and MD of the Hiranandani Group, again a man heavily invested in infrastructure. But before we get to our panelists, let's hear what the common man has to say.
For a salaried employed like me, owning a house in Mumbai is like a far-fetched dream. I think the government should increase the tax exemption limit on housing loans.
A fair budget, okay, especially for the middle class people who are working out here. I think we need to get the better tax rebate as to what we have.
Definitely we need to have good security, and for that if government is ready to spend more, it is welcome.
बजट जो आएगा ना उसमें कांदा सब्जी भाजी ये सब का रेट कम होना चाहिए और मोदी इफेक्ट उसमें तुरंत दिखना ही चाहिए. अगर नहीं दिखेगा तो फिर पब्लिक फिर भड़क जाएगी.
There you got it. What really hurts the common man? Inflation, prices. They want relief in that. They want relief in taxes. They want more safety in Indian cities and towns and all across the country. So do you think do you think he'll be able to reduce tax rates?
I think he will be able to, and he will reduce taxes. How much we'll have to see. But one thing is there, just to have an optical value for that, government also might consider to increase the taxes above those who are having income above 1 crore rupees, just a little bit. That won't be add more to government kitty, but it will be necessary and expedient to balance both ways.
Okay. Keki, you're shaking your head.
I don't. I personally would not agree with that. I think we have 40,000 odd taxpayers who declare income of more than 1 crore, which I think is complete nonsense.
So you need to widen the base.
We have to widen the base. And the only way you can widen the base is to aggressively go after people who have got unaccounted money.
Okay.
And once you go after them, and if a strong government was to sort of tell them that we give you a one-time amnesty scheme, and you declare all your income, pay your taxes, there are two ways to do it. One way to do it is you collect the money, you tell them that 34% is a normal tax rate. We will tax you at say 3% higher or 4% higher, and that money is of course the government's. In addition, the amount that is due back to the individual could be kept by the government for developmental activities for 5 years. So you could, or 5 or 7 years, and you could issue a bond which is interest bearing, and at the end of 5 or 7 years that money could be paid back to that individual. So you will collect a huge amount of money.
Okay.
So I would say as an incentive you need to lower the tax rate, not increase the tax rate.
So lower the tax rate and get an amnesty scheme and collect it. Niranjan, before we get all of that, before you came in, we were talking about how difficult it is to do business in India. What's plaguing the infrastructure sector? Largely policies that are not clear, the lack of land or non-availability of land for industries like yours. What are your solutions? I'm not going to ask you for what's plaguing and bugging your industry, but what are the solutions? What would you like to see from Mr. Modi?
I think the single-mindedness to achieve an objective. If you want to make a building, there's an objective, you can achieve it. If you want to make 1 million houses and 25 million, what he's talking about from the year 2022, it's an achievable target. It's happened all over the world, and we can do it. We have all the inputs. We have the financial inputs. We have the debt inputs. We have the entrepreneur. We have FDI. REITs is coming on the line. So finance is not really the major issue. There are two major issues besides what you've already considered. One is land. Land has become prohibitively expensive, and after the LAQ situation, which has changed, is going to become even more prohibitive. So you'll have to increase the FAR in order to do it, but married with infrastructure. If you marry higher FSI with good infrastructure, you can construct as much as you want. Second,
go vertical.
Go vertical. You have to expedite permission, and you have to reduce the number of permissions. In all the sectors of industry, you have de-licensed after 1991. In real estate, you have licensed to the extent of corruption. So you need to de-license again in order to reduce the corruption level and speed up the permission process. If you do a combination of giving easy permissions, increasing the FAR, improving infrastructure, the target of Mr. Modi is achievable, but with one rider, if I may. the poorest of poor still cannot be housed. So we need to get a cross subsidy to that element. So what is the percentage of houses that we need to give to this sector? How do we marry it with what the state agencies are doing and what private people are doing? Is a thing which we need to do quickly.
All right. Rashid, infrastructure also needs land. It needs, government is sitting on lots of land. It also needs a lot of what is known as national assets. How do you price it? Because that's been one of in a sense, what's stalled the earlier government was really the pricing of national assets, which had to be given to private hands for development, whether it is coal, whether it is spectrum, whether it is perhaps land, whether it's gas.
The fact of the matter always is that large parts of infrastructure needs assets which are with the government. In the olden days, the government would set up government-owned institutions to exploit them.
Yes.
But we have now gone very far that we know that the private sector can effectively exploit those assets and do it more efficiently. So how do we, and I don't call it the public-private partnership. I'm taking there is a effective way where we need to make government assets available for the private users who can use those assets to create infrastructure, spectrum, coal, land, all of that.
How do you price it right?
And here we
can't be too expensive because then it makes everything else unviable. Nor can you sell it too cheap. So what's the?
I think a very effective, I wouldn't call it auction mechanism, but a very transparent process by which anybody who wants it and can exploit it can really bid for it. Strong commitments around using it for the purpose for which you have actually bought it. So because we have all seen, you acquire the asset and you just squat on it for years. So I think that also needs enforcement so that you can enforce it very effectively. I think third, as I said, a very transparent policy around end use and opening it up, because I don't think that the resources are scarce in India. We have enough spectrum, we have enough mines, we have enough land, we have all of that. So remove the scarcity element, and once scarcity element goes away, I think people then will use it for the end use for which is required, rather than get into this hoarding, squatting mentality.
Okay, let me running almost out of time, so let me quickly get a last word there for all of you. What is the one big reform statement that you want from the finance minister when he announces the budget, and what will disappoint you if it's not there, Mr. Dhoot?
Yeah, you see, first of all, everybody would like to have reforms should be embedded in the budget, and these reforms has to be given with what growth government will have and what fiscal deficit government will put.
So fiscal deficit for you very critical.
Future how they will reduce it, because there is the FRBM Act, and there the fiscal deficit government has promised to bring it back to the 2%.
So for you, fiscal deficit is very important, because that has a direct impact on interest rates.
They should give a line in which, the direction in which, that it should be, they will obey Fiscal Responsibility Act, which was passed in 2001, and nothing has been done. If they do that and give a direction, that will be the easiest thing government can do.
Keki, get inflation under control, get the fiscal deficit under control, will lead to lower interest rates. You're not allowed to say that. What else would you want?
I would say all that is given. I think we need all that. Having said that, we talked earlier, focus on infrastructure, focus on creation of new jobs. See, India is a domestic economy. So because we are a domestic economy, if we can start the investment cycle going, then automatically that will create jobs. Jobs will create income. Income will lead to consumption. Consumption will mean more manufacturers will produce more, which means more jobs get created. Okay. And then the economy can keep growing on itself.
So you want measures on all of this?
I don't think. I think as far as the investment cycle is concerned, you just need a more friendly environment, easier approvals, tax rates which are clear, tax laws which are clear. That is all that you need.
Okay. Niranjan, what's the one big statement that you would be looking out for from this budget?
Look at any country, new country, which actually created the growth. There are only two segments which really they used. China, manufacturing, and housing. Look at Singapore, the base was housing. You look at every segment of development economies, which you see, if you want to create that paradigm of GDP growth and the multiplier effect in terms of employment. You see, we are not focused enough on employment. A lot of surplus people, you are doing social security of Narega. I'm not against Narega. But those people
create assets with it.
Create assets, and if you can get this employment done by housing and infrastructure, if you do it, we don't get labor today because people are in Narega. So the policies have been skewed in such a way that today on one side we are mechanizing all our industry in order to see that we don't use labor.
So your big thing is get
manufacturing, housing, and labor skilling in order to see that the whole change takes place.
The last word.
Actually, I've always hoped for quite some time that, we talk about inflation and fiscal deficit and current account deficit and all, but we never quantify what is how many jobs we want to create. So I would hope that for the first time, maybe in the budget, they announce something like, say, in the next 5 years, we want to create
this many jobs.
We want to create 100 million jobs.
All right.
And then actually break it up, like the way you actually break up your income and expenditure, that if you open up, say, for example, housing will create 20 million jobs, insurance will create 3 million jobs, banking will create 5 million jobs, and create a job-oriented budget.
Okay, so they got, therefore India wants manufacturing back, it wants jobs, it wants lower inflation, it wants lower interest rates, it just wants growth back. 10, 12, 15%. That's maybe what we're aiming for. Thanks so much for watching. We'll know what Mr. Jaitley and Mr. Modi have to tell us in just a few days, and we'll be back with more on Change India.
Edelweiss and CNBC TV 18 present Change India, what India needs.